Welcome to the XT Podcast, your ultimate destination for valuable insights, practical advice, and inspiring stories that will transform the way you experience business, governance, and life. Join your host, Ashutosh, as he dives deep into three distinct editions: Customer Experience Edition, where industry leaders discuss CX strategies, product brand employee experience, digital innovations, and best practices for improving customer engagement, retention, and loyalty.
Have you ever wondered how storytelling, technology, and human connection come together to create unforgettable customer experiences? Or how Gen AI and XR are reshaping industries while keeping authenticity at the core? In this episode, we explore how brands can balance technology and humanity to build trust, the role of authentic storytelling in driving loyalty and engagement, insights on leveraging Gen AI and immersive technologies to transform customer experiences. Today's guest is a true Renaissance man, seamlessly blending the worlds of tech, entertainment, and innovation. Andrew Asnes began his career captivating audiences around the globe as a performing artist, dancing with the Paul Taylor Dance Company and Twyla Tharp. Touring over 40 countries, he then took his talents to Broadway, performing in and producing iconic shows like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, The Color Purple, the musical, Legally Blonde, the musical, and 50 Shades, the musical parody. Andrew's journey didn't stop on the stage. Armed with an MBA from Columbia University, where he first discovered virtual reality, he launched into the tech world, creating the viral Hamilton, the musical 360-degree video that promoted the 2016 Tony Awards, which Mark Zuckerberg himself shared to his personal page. Since then, he's been a force in delivering innovative XR experiences, leading multi-million-dollar projects, and winning accolades like the Gen AI Innovation Challenge while at Accenture. Andrew's passion lies in crafting extraordinary experiences, whether it's for a theater audience, a student mastering a new language, or an organization transforming its training. Buckle up for a conversation that dives into the thrilling intersection of technology, storytelling, and human connection with Andrew Asnes. Good morning, Andrew, and welcome to the XT podcast.
Yes, thank you, Ashutosh. Glad to be here.
It's a pleasure hosting you today, and thank you so much for joining, Andrew. And I cannot help but start by thanking you once again for contributing to my nation's 50th anniversary of independence. Really means a lot to us.
It was an amazing experience just to be there. It was incredible.
For all the viewers and listeners of the show, while Andrew was with the Paul Taylor Dance Company, the company was invited by the then American ambassador to India, Mr. Frank Weissner, to be a gift of culture for India to celebrate India's 50th anniversary of independence. And this has been covered in a fascinating award nominated documentary, Dance Maker. Andrew is in it too, and it offers an very insightful glimpse or behind the curtains view into what goes into the magical performances and the artist's pursuit of perfection. I'll be sharing the link of this documentary in description, so please take a look. I'll definitely recommend that. It's a must watch.
I agree, Ashutosh. Thank you for sharing that with your audience.
Absolutely, it's a must watch. Andrew, that brings me to my first question, which is from literally Broadway to boardrooms. Your career spans performing arts, immersive technologies, innovation, strategy. It's been such a diverse career. So, how has this diverse background really shaped your understanding of customer experience?
Well, thank you for that question and for the generous introduction. I would say audience size to me doesn't matter, right? What I mean by that is whether you're talking to one person in a one-on-one situation, thousands in a performance, millions through media or through your technology, you have to bring the same effort. You have to bring the same focus. And what I mean by that is, like, let's look at the theater business, right? When you're telling a story to an audience, the most important thing you have to do is make the audience care about the characters. You have to make them invested in following the story you're telling. And if you can do that, you'll succeed. Now, how you do that is the ultimate question. So formulaic shows that just like plug things into a formula of a story, they usually don't succeed. They don't do well. But those that can create a real connection between the characters and the audience have a long-running success. Like, look at The Lion King, look at Phantom of the Opera, Wicked, which just came out with a huge blockbuster movie, and Hamilton, for example, right? All of those shows have those characteristics. They make you care for the characters. Even if you don't love the character, right? If they're not a great person, you still care about them. And that's what's important. And so that's similar to in business, right? When you are relating to a customer of yours, you have to make them care about the interaction with you as a business. And it's a little bit different, but customer focus is really the most important part of any journey, right? If you lose touch with your customer, you lose touch with your business and your ability to satisfy those customers. And if you don't satisfy them, they'll go away. And if they go away, you'll lose your business, right?
Absolutely.
Let's look at an example. Many startups have failed because they try to build something for everyone. And when you do that, your focus gets spread out and diverted, and you can't really figure out what your customers want. But the most successful startups build a product that focuses on one problem, and they solve that problem really well. And their early customers come to them and they listen and they pay attention to how those customers use their product, what they say about their product, what they feel about their experience with that product, and what they don't like about it. And they try to satisfy those early customers and make them as happy as they can be. And once you're able to do that, those are like the unscalable things you have to do to make customers happy. But once you do that and you do it well enough, then it's easy to scale that out to many customers, because the early people tell you the most about your product. The later people who come in and customers who use your product may not be as invested,
Yes.
but they still want to be satisfied in the same way. They still want their problem solved. So to me, like, this is an important thing. Your audience size isn't the important thing, but your ability to listen and your ability to pay attention to what your customer needs is the most important thing. And if you can't do that, if you're not giving a customer an individualized, personalized level of attention, you won't make them happy, and your customers will leave you, and you'll ultimately lose them.
How fascinating. Andrew, I cannot agree more. In fact, the common adage in the industry is customer is always right. And it cannot be any more wrong, because if I look at it based on what you just said, Andrew, clearly it is the right customer is always right, which means you need to have a far more focused definition of who your customer is, which is what you were pointing to. You should know clearly who your customer is, the specific problem that you're solving for them, and have clarity on that solution as you work that out. One thing that came out of your response also, Andrew, is the art of storytelling, or making an emotional appeal rather than a logical appeal. Is that your experience as well, Andrew, that people often resonate a lot more to an emotional instinctive appeal rather than a logical appeal of features and functions?
Yes, I would agree with that. I think an emotional connection to anything deepens satisfaction with that, right? It obviously a positive emotional experience. A negative emotional experience drives your customers away. But if you can create a positive emotional reaction to your product, right? The magic of, oh my God, my life just got easier, then yeah, that's going to be a huge driver of growth for your business. And it's true in sales, for example, right? If you're trying to sell
Yes.
something to someone, you need to appeal to them personally and emotionally. Like, how are you solving their problems so their life in the future will look different and will be better in whatever way your product solves that problem for them. So positive emotional experience with your product is pretty important. How you do that is, there are a variety of ways that you would create that experience for your customer. It depends on your business, depends on your need. Now, the logical side has to be there underneath. You
Of
can't
course.
have the positive emotional experience without satisfying their problems with the proper product solution, right? And of course, if you go too deep in the weeds, I talked about the one customer focus, but if you go too deep in the weeds with one customer, you may derail your focus as a business. So as you scale, you have to figure out how to balance the needs of individual customers with the overall customer base so that everybody has a great experience. You can take yourself, for example, engineers have a focus, right? A company may be building a product that uses engineers, software, or other types of engineers, and you have a pipeline of work that needs to get done. And suddenly a customer comes along and says, "Hey, we need this thing tweaked over here." And if you pull everybody off what they're doing, you may derail the focus and the growth of the company. So you got to find the balance, is what I'm saying. But emotional connection to anything, I think, drives us as humans, right? The human experience is emotional by nature, and we have to understand that. We have to allow for that in business in order to really make great evangelists, make great customers that want to stay with you.
Very well said, Andrew. In fact, the reason I asked you that question is I've always seen the salespeople, the business managers, they having a very great spiel about who they are and what value they could offer. But they often miss out on the emotional appeal, the instinctive appeal, which finally would help them have their customers listen to the logical appeal in the first place. And you very well put that out that even if you have great solution, a great product, unless you have a positive emotional appeal, you won't get the business, right?
Absolutely. You're selling the future state of someone, a life. If I'm selling you something, I'm selling you what is your future state going to be. It's personal. You may be buying a solution for your company, but the result is going to have a personal impact on you. What is that personal impact that drives me or you as an individual that says, "Oh wow, this solution is going to satisfy whatever I think my future should be"? Is it more money? Is it because I'll have done something great for the company and get a promotion? Is it saving me time so I can free up time to do other things that I can't seem to get to right now because my workload is too heavy? There are a million things that you might find somebody needs, but if you can connect to that individual need, sales becomes much easier because then they feel like, "Oh wow, they're listening to me. They get me." And that's it. Really important.
Absolutely. In fact, Andrew, that poses a problem, isn't it? On one side, there's a need for a positive emotional appeal, there's a need for a human connection, as you rightly pointed out. And on the other side, we have these technologies coming in, which are all about automation, chatbots, Gen AI. There's a one on one personalization driven at scale by technology. So there's a bot that's operating based on what you're feeding it, the data that's been shared of you, so that experience could be personalized for you, but it's inhuman in some way or the other, right? So how do you balance? I'm talking to someone who's the winner of Accenture's 2023 Gen AI Innovation Challenge. So who better than you to tell us how technologies like Gen AI and with the need for human experience on one side, how are they driving or transforming customer experience in the future?
Okay, that's kind of a multi-part question, so we can break
Yes.
it down a little bit. I think, Gen AI in general is kind of a magical tool. It can enhance your powers as a human to do your work more efficiently, to be smarter, right? To save you time, for example, doing research, simple things like that. But you may have to, before Gen AI, you may have spent a couple of hours a day researching something, but now you can get that delivered to your inbox every morning, as I do, for example, using a tool. And I get CX information delivered to my inbox every morning that tells me more about the industry and what's going on and what's happening. Gen AI allows for that, right? But on the other hand, we've had chatbots for a long time, right? But now they're more powerful and they can do a lot more because they can have interactive conversations with you at a level that did not exist prior to Gen AI. That's a really powerful tool. I think it's important that human supervision and human interaction is involved in that workflow at all times or in some fashion, right? And the reason for that, it kind of draws me to the second part of your question. The reason you need this balance is because Gen AI has limits, right? It also can make mistakes at times. We've seen that. We've heard all the news about things like lawyers using Gen AI to write a brief and submitting it to the court and then realizing that it's citing cases that didn't exist. And what was it? Which airline? I can't remember, that had a chatbot misquote a price and then the company had to honor the price. It was like $1 for an international flight or something. I can't recall.
Gosh.
But the court ruled that, well, you guys used this tool and you told this customer this is what the price was, you have to honor it. So The human has to be involved in some way for checks and balances. But let me give you an example that I've seen using automation and AI and humans, right? Let's say you're a service providing firm, let's say a law firm, and you have a bunch of channels you use to get clients to come to you. And so one of the ways clients come to you is they click on a link in some fashion, an ad, an email, whatever it is, and that takes them to a form and they fill out that information. Now, it used to be that form would go to someone in your office and they'd have to read through it and verify the information, et cetera. Well, now Gen AI can do all of that for you, right? During the process, it can analyze the form, it can ask follow-up questions and make sure the data is correct. For example, addresses, we've seen that a million times on the web where you type in your address and it suggests a more formal version of the address that all systems recognize, right? That's one thing. But maybe there's information in there like you have a certain retainer level that you operate at. Can this customer afford that retainer? They'll let you know if you ask the right questions and you have the right interaction through using Gen AI. And all of that takes place before the form gets sent over to your office and whomever is in charge of receiving these incoming customer requests.
Wow.
Now you've already vetted this customer. And either in the process, let's say that customer can't afford your retainer, you say, thank you so much, but we're not going to be a right fit. Here are some law firms that might be able to help you, right? That would be a kind way of interacting with that customer. And then the ones that do that have been vetted successfully and that can afford you get passed on to someone within your firm. And now your firm takes over. Now a human takes over and starts interacting with that
Right.
customer. There's probably a bunch of information that you don't want to share through a form and that you don't want to ask through a form. So that's where the human has to come in. So that's a really simple way to sort of think through, like, what can Gen AI do to save me time, help my business out, and really get me, as you mentioned earlier, the right customer, right? Because I don't want to spend time talking to someone who can't afford my service. That's a waste of my time.
Absolutely.
So this is a really simple way for us to employ AI. But then at a certain point, the human has to come in and the human has to take over the relationship because AIs aren't good with relationships.
It's artificial for a reason, isn't it? You need the manual agent some point in the journey. Absolutely. Andrew, is it garbage in, garbage out? In the sense, is there a need for a high quality data, for a high quality output coming in from such intelligent systems, automations, AI solutions, or whatsoever? And you have worked with firms like xpbrand.ai, Zwook. So clearly you have handled this problem already in some way or the other. So would love to know your insight on how do we solve the puzzle in terms of using the data but leveraging it the right way to give a right output, and how critical is getting the right data in the first place?
Yeah, great question. To start, absolutely, data can be extraordinarily helpful to any business and knowing where to look and what to look at, right? Those are kind of obvious, and anybody who knows anything about data and business is probably just saying, duh. But there are a few things, right? Your data has to be formatted and cleaned so that it is usable.
Yes.
As we said, if you filled out the form and you missed your zip code, you missed the city when you're putting in the address, right? Now that goes into some database and it's missing information. Well, that data is not going to help you as you analyze it across all of those customers because you're missing information that's absolutely necessary for you to segment the customers, right? So having clean data is paramount. There are a bunch of services that can help you do that, et cetera. But putting in workflows that allow that data before it even enters your database to be verified is really valuable, really important, and AI can help you with that. Once you have good data, then the question is like, well, what am I looking at? What am I looking for? Why am I using this data? Everybody talks about data as being this important thing. What are you actually doing with it, and why do you need it? And am I looking at the right information? So thinking through that, and AI can actually help you do that. If you said garbage in, garbage out, that's true of Gen AI. If I go into one of the services, ChatGPT, Claude, Mistral, any of the big tools out there, and I put in a prompt that is really generic and basic, I'm not going to get the kind of answer I want. I'll give you a real quick example. Last night, my son was struggling with a problem in pre-calculus. And he was like, I don't know how to find the Z1 and the Z2. And I said, well, let's go into ChatGPT and ask them to explain like the process step by step. And he asked a really bland question and it didn't get the answer he wanted. And I said, all right, think about what you asked. Ask it again in a different way so you get the answer you want. And he did. And then he got a correct set of instructions. So that's what it is. Okay. So garbage in, garbage out, right? Ask the right question, get the good answer. A great thing about AI is it can help you think through what are the right questions to be asking of your data. If you're unsure,
Nice.
you can use AI to help you think through, well, what am I really looking for? What do I want to find out about my customer that is going to help me better understand them? So you have to be able to use data. You have to be able to understand what you're looking for. Example might be if you are looking to grow your business in certain geographical areas, you can then source various types of data. You might have data within your organization that shows you, do we have any customers in that area to start? If we do, what kind of customers are they? Are they recurring customers, one and done? Are they customers that are giving us feedback? Are we asking for feedback from those customers, right? If you answer, those answers will then help you figure out how to break into getting more customers in that geographical area. Now, if you have no data on that area, you have no customers, well, then you can source public data about your industry in that geographical area, and you can start figuring out ways to query that. Postgres is a database tool, and they just came out with, I think it was yesterday I saw this, they came out with a LLM based chat with your data. It's
Wow.
online. Listeners would have to look it up, but it's postgres.new, and you can literally upload your data, and it's all web based. So your data is safe because it's like locally stored. And then you can query your data through simple chat. It can take your spreadsheet of information, for example, turn it into a database, and then you can ask it, hey, what kind of questions should I ask here? How do I query this data using Postgres in a way that's going to give me the kind of answers I want? You can make charts, you can make graphs, you can do all of this stuff instantly from, say, an Excel spreadsheet on the web. So there are a lot of tools out there that can allow you to use your data and help you figure out how and what to do with that data. So data obviously is very important. It's less important, I think, for smaller businesses because you have more control, you have more touch points with your customer. But as you scale and it becomes bigger and bigger, it's a lot harder to keep those relationships at scale. So data becomes more important, right?
Absolutely. In fact, Andrew, you answered the next question I would have asked is what happens if I don't have the data? And you, in a way, already covered that, how I could source data if I didn't have any. But here's an interesting
Sure.
question, Andrew. What I've also seen people do, leveraging Gen AI to create data, to feed to an AI algorithm. And they're leveraging Gen AI to say, give me variations of the data I'm feeding you so that I have the scale that an AI solution needs. Now, I do not know if that's the right way to do it, in the sense you are generating data rather than leveraging the data. And even if the GenAI has the capability to generate data, whether it will be accurate, relevant, and will give you the right insights, that's questionable.
I think you're right. And I think I don't have that much experience with artificial data, with creating data and then employing it. I do know that LLMs have trouble over time if you feed them their own outputs to train them. So
Right.
I think you have to be careful with that. But what's it called? Synthetic data can be very, very valuable, right? You could have an LLM create a spreadsheet for you of a lot of interesting different data about your industry, whether it's types of customers. You may have a group of customer types that you already work with. And then you could create a sequence of data emulating those same customers. And then you could extend that into other areas of your business, maybe thinking through like what other functionality that solves problems they may have. You could do some research on other problems that customers like yours have, and then plug that into the synthetic data and then query that data. And it could be very helpful in giving you insights in how to approach new customers for a new service, for a new product feature, etc. So I think it is really valuable. There are experts out there who could speak much more clearly about it than myself, but I do think there's a lot of value to synthetic data. I just think you have to be careful how you use it because it's not your real customer.
The guardrails are important. I totally get that. Andrew, we talked about listening by way of focusing on the right data and sourcing the right data and all of that. Then we touched upon analytics and how this data could be analyzed now as quickly as just chatting with your data and getting the visualizations right up front, and maybe even asking questions on what should I ask so that I get the right insights from the data that I have. But the more important part additionally is also actions, right? Where now given the data and the insights, you take actions on this data. And this is where I see most organizations fail at democratizing data, in the sense sharing the insights across the functions, the intelligence being made cross-functional, and leveraging all the aspects of the business, giving them the right insights at the right time so that they can act with intelligence. What's been your takeaways of leveraging insights for cross-functional teams, and also leveraging cross-functional teams for organizational success?
Great question. When you're dealing with a cross-functional group, listening to the different teams' needs is paramount, right? Because just giving them data isn't going to be helpful if it doesn't help them with whatever tasks or functions they're providing to the company. So understanding what they need and then giving it to them is going to be paramount to success when you're dealing with cross-functional teams, right? So listening really well is going to be important. And then understanding what their need based on what you hear, then trying to figure out how do I get from my data, get from my team the information I need so that each group gets a little bit of something they need so that they can start to function more efficiently. They can solve the problem they have. When you're working with different teams, say on a project, everybody has their different priorities and needs, and it's really hard to balance that, right? And to figure out, okay, how do I allocate resources effectively to everybody so everybody does their best work, right? And sometimes you can't give everybody what they need. But I've found if you listen really well and you make sure people feel like they are heard, then you're able to make them feel comfortable with whatever the result is. They may not get what they need, but they were heard. Because you listened to them and you validated what they were saying, they're going to be more likely to go along with whatever the solution is that's provided across the team. So that's really important. Like making people feel heard. Same thing with a customer. Making a customer feel heard is going to keep them as a customer. You may not be able to give them everything they need. You may not be able to satisfy even that one major interaction complaint that they're having. But if you validate their complaint, they're going to be more likely to stick around and say, okay, you know what, could be a simple thing as such as they had a bad interaction with a teller at a bank and the person didn't treat them the way they wanted to be treated. And they complain about it. And there's only so far that's going to take them, right? We're not going to fire that teller. We may educate that teller a little bit on interactions with customers, but maybe the customer was rude to the teller and threw them off guard. We're not going to tell the customer to take a hike because you were rude, but we're going to let them know we hear you, we understand you're not satisfied, and maybe we set it up so that teller doesn't work with that customer anymore. But they're not always going to be satisfied, but if they feel like they're heard, they will definitely stick around because they feel like you care. This goes back to earlier in the conversation, making connection. Human connection is everything. Relationships are everything. So we do it every day in our personal lives, in our business lives. So it's kind of my approach.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that statement, Andrew, that ensuring that the people feel they are heard. That's so important. I've seen most organizations take it very literally when they run surveys and ask questions, what do you want us to work on? But I think what you're driving at is not just asking questions, but acting on the feedback and ensuring the customers feel they were heard because certain actions were taken to address their issues that were pointed at, right? So both matter, not just asking questions, but also acting on the feedback received. I can't agree more, Andrew. I think if I go back to where we started, Andrew, one of the key things in business, as you rightly said, is human connection. And for that, storytelling is absolutely important. I've The first interaction we had was a free flowing conversation where I had a pitch, but I forgot about it and I went into what's been your experience with India, what's been your experience as an artist. And we ended up talking a lot more about that, and that just connected us far more closely than a pitch would have. And I think that's the power of being genuine and coming in as you are. Why do you think organizations miss out on that, and how important do you think is this storytelling in a brand's customer experience journey?
Well, storytelling is a human trait. Goes back to ancient civilization, right? I mean, look at
Yes.
every religion is based on a story. Every early people told stories. I went out to get food for you and I was attacked by a wild boar. You're going to come home and tell the story of why you have that scrape on your leg, right? Or wound or whatever, right? So storytelling is a basic human trait and it's vital for everything. We do it every day. We tell a story to our family members. We tell a story to ourselves. We tell a story to our colleagues, to our customers. So it's probably the most important thing. Learning how to tell a good story is the most important, I think, business trait and personal trait. It can help you influence decision makers. It can help you, how you, in a business, how you tell a story to leadership can either get the results you want or get you thrown out the door, right? Like that's a ridiculous idea, Andrew. Why, but if I tell the story differently and I tell it really well and I show the advantages of following whatever solution I'm prescribing would be and how that's going to personally impact the people in the room, then I'm going to have a much better chance of success. So storytelling is extraordinarily important, and any business can't survive without the ability to tell a good story. All the marketing that we do as businesses is driven by storytelling. And the most successful companies are the ones who create that connection, create that ability to reach the customer and create an emotional reaction to what it is that they're selling. That's why you often see on commercials these emotional stories of someone helping someone else in a situation when that may not be related to the product at all, but you get this warm feeling about the story you were just told in this short commercial, and then it was brought to you by this product, and you're like, oh, I feel warm about that product, right? So storytelling is essential, and it's essential to communicate to your customers using storytelling in a way that makes them interested in you, whether it's through whatever channels of marketing you use, email, and how do I get you to click on this? Like, what's the driver that's going to bring you to my website or to my offer? It's got to be some story that I'm telling. Could be through advertising, social media, could be through using an influencer. I think when I've seen influencers do product placements in their social media, the best ones are sort of telling me how they use this every day in their life or how it's helped their everyday life. It's not, I'm doing this cool thing. It's not this formula of this is how I tell my story about your product. It's a honest, genuine, relatable story about the product and their experience with it. So I think if you don't invest in storytelling in a business, you're going to have a lot harder time expanding your customer base.
In fact, Andrew, now that you talked about this, I have to ask you this question because you have been an artist, you have created, contributed to, been in magical performances yourself. And what I've witnessed is there is some X factor in certain artists that makes them great, no matter the talent, no matter the effort, dedication, commitment, whatever you would have. But there's some X factor that makes that particular artist greater than somebody else or anybody else. And this is true for the brands as well. Brands may have had a specific offering, they may have amazing features, there could be a lot of things, but there's always some other brand which does it all with some X factor, and that wins the market. And I'm asking you this question purely because we are in a market where customers are no more as loyal as they used to be. They switch products and services the moment they get a better offer. The loyalty is a challenge these days. Retention is a challenge. So what is that X factor that you would have experienced or witnessed as an artist yourself, and what you feel brands should be able to catch on so that they have more loyalty than the competitor?
So I have a few answers to that question. Individually, I think the reason you are drawn to certain artists, potentially over others, because at a certain level, there are many, many people who are excellent.
Yes.
But I think the ones that come through often have a certain level of confidence that comes from this discovery I made on stage early on when I was performing, which is the ability to say, "This is me, and that's enough,"
Beautiful.
which is extraordinarily difficult to do on a daily basis because we have all these other things contributing to our emotional instability as humans. But if you can just say, "This is me, and that's all I have to offer, and that's enough," it's an incredibly powerful confidence builder. Now, as a brand, can you do that? Yes, you can. We talked about storytelling and emotional connection. Like all of those things have to come into play. It's not one thing. But when you're able to say, "This is me and that's enough," then you open yourself up to be vulnerable, to expose inner workings of your ability to communicate to an audience, right? And a brand can do that. If a brand could say, "This is us, this is what we do," then they can open themselves up to the ability to be able to communicate what they do in really interesting, different ways. Like we said, like you might see a story about something totally unrelated, a little kid on the sidewalk and they fell off their bike and this older gentleman comes along and he helps them out and helps the kid up and he brushes off his dirty pants and he gets him back on the bike and he holds the back of the bike as the kid starts to ride and the kid rides off and he has success. And then the product's about life insurance or something. But we feel so good about what we saw. And the company is confident enough to say, "We are confident in who we are, that we can put out a story that makes you resonate with us in a very particular way." I think artists that do that are the ones that you sit there and just you connect with. And I think brands can do the same thing. It creates a genuine experience for the customer with the brand, right? Being authentic, not trying to be something because everybody wants that or that's the fad, that's the thing. It's just being who you are and staying true to that. And that can be difficult because how many times can I say the same thing and feel good about what I've said, right? Because if I have a certain set of values and ways that I want to communicate or things I want to say about my brand, if I get bored with what I'm saying or I feel like I'm repeating myself and I don't know how to break out of that, you just have to step back into that space of "This is me and that's enough." And then you can find some new avenues and new ways to say the same thing because you're just going to say the same thing over and over again. And that's okay. Right? That's
Beautiful.
not a problem. I did the same role in the Paul Taylor Dance Company from the first summer I joined the company until 11 years later when I left. We didn't always
Wow.
do that dance every year, but we did it very often. And I did the same part for 11 years. So I probably did 1,000 plus performances of that dance. I have no idea how many. But at a certain point, you might get bored. On Broadway, you do 8 shows a week, the same exact thing.
Yes.
So how do you keep that fresh every single day? How do you feel like every moment that I'm in that performance is new to me, right? So the audience, because it's going to be new to them, most of them. There'll be a bunch of them who have come back many times to see you. So they're interested to see what you bring that day. And so how do you make it fresh is going back to that basic concept of like, how do I just be present right now? This is me and that's enough. And now I can be present for whatever happens because I might be working with someone different that day as a performer, as a business person. Someone on my team changed. Someone on my team isn't available. So now we've got another person who stepped in to take over because we need to have a meeting with the customer. I got to let that person just do what they do and do it well and be open to that. And I've got to allow myself to be present for whatever changes are in that meeting that I wasn't able to anticipate because I thought Ashutosh is going to be there, but he can't be there today. You know what I'm saying? So
Fantastic.
that's what I say.
Beautiful. Very, very well said, Andrew. This will be the highlight of our session. I just loved how you articulated it. And this clearly is the need of the hour for the brands to be authentic. And as you rightly said, it's not easy. Not easy at all. I can't agree more with you. With that, Andrew, let me thank you for your time with us today at the XT podcast. It's a pleasure hosting you. Thank you for sharing your wonderful insights. And I will definitely be sharing the link to your documentary and the article that you recently posted about executing AI. I really love the steps that you've articulated, and really looking forward to have another episode sometime soon.
Great. Thank you, Ashutosh. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And to all your customers, you are enough.
Fantastic.